The story begins in the heart of a Canadian winter in November of 1930. We're in the vast, unforgiving landscape of the Northwest Territories, a place where the wind is the only architect and snow is the only certainty. A man, a trapper named Joe LaBelle, is urging his dog's sled forward. The air is so cold it bites at any exposed skin, and his own breath has frosted his hood into a spectral white halo. For 10 long winters, this has been his routine. He's a familiar face along the western shore of Anjikuni Lake, trading tea, ammunition, and stories with the Inuit people who make their camp there. Tonight, as the pale sun dips below the horizon, he's not just seeking trade, he's seeking warmth, community. He's dreaming of freshly cooked bannock, of shared laughter that steams in the frigid air, of a mug of something hot cupped in his freezing hands. Instead of warmth, he walks into a silence so profound, it's like a physical blow. The scene he stumbles upon is a portrait of life interrupted. 30 skin tents, the homes of an entire community, stand empty, their flaps snapping in the relentless wind like ghost flags on a forgotten battlefield. The signs of recent life are everywhere, and they are chilling. A pot of caribou stew still glugs and bubbles over a bed of dying coals. A pair of handmade mitts left out to dry drip water that freezes mid-air, but it's the dogs that truly stop his heart. 39 sled dogs, the lifeblood of any northern community, lie chained at the edge of the camp. Their ribs show through their thick fur, a testament to days of hunger, yet they are unnervingly calm, as silent as monks in meditation. There are no footprints leading away from the camp, no signs of a struggle, no voices carried on the wind. There is only the ringing hush that echoes in your ears after the sudden blast of a gunshot. Here, 900 kilometers from the nearest road, an entire village of men, women and children has, quite simply, stepped off the map. Joe LaBelle's personal diary, which would later be splashed across the pages of the Halifax Herald and ignite a national sensation, captures the rising panic of that moment. He wrote that he hollered their names until his throat was raw and bleeding, the sound swallowed by the immense indifferent tundra. Then, with dread coiling in his gut, he began a methodical search, ducking into every single tent. The scene inside each one only deepened the mystery. Bedding was smoothed, not thrown aside in haste. Kettles, recently filled, were still steaming gently over cold fires. In one tent, a woman's sealskin garment lay unfinished, a bone needle frozen mid-stitch, as if she had just set it down to step outside for a moment. Every logical explanation died on his lips. Was it famine? Impossible. The camp's meat cache was full, holding over 60 kilos of dried caribou, more than enough to last. Was it a sudden, virulent disease? Unlikely. There were no bodies, no signs of sickness, no freshly cut graves in the iron-hard permafrost. Speaking of graves, even the village's small ancestral graveyard looked wrong. The traditional stone piles marking the resting places had been disturbed, rolled aside. The coffins beneath had been opened, their contents exposed to the elements, yet the bones within lay completely untouched. It made no sense. Wolves and other scavengers in the barrens will avoid human remains, sure, but why would anyone take the time to rifle through graves, yet ignore the free meal of the starving sled dogs? It was then that true panic finally sank its teeth into Joe LaBelle. He sprinted back to his sled, his own dogs lunging in confusion, and mushed for 46 frantic, non-stop kilometres to the nearest telegraph shack at Eerily Lake. His message, tapped out into the ether, was the stuff of winter nightmares. Anjikuni deserted, no tracks, need Mounties. On December 3rd, a 3-man patrol of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, led by Constable J. Nelson, badge number 8721, arrived to investigate. The official RCMP files, finally declassified and released in 1999, confirmed the skeletal basics of LaBelle's report. They found an empty camp, no signs of a struggle, and live dogs that had been starved for several days. After that, the official record becomes as thin as breath on minus 40-degree air. The paperwork seems to vanish. There are no official photographs of the scene, no signed witness statements beyond the initial report from Joe. The Mounties conducted a thorough search, sweeping a 2-kilometre perimeter around the camp, finding absolutely nothing. Their bloodhounds, expert trackers, were useless. The dogs reportedly refused to even pick up a scent, just quivering and whining at the edge of the silent village. In the Arctic, any trail older than half a day is easily dusted over by drifting snow, erasing any hope of tracking the villagers. Frustrated and without leads, Constable Nelson wired his superiors in Ottawa. His official report concluded no evidence of crime. Villagers have possibly migrated. The response from headquarters was swift and decisive. Close file. Returned within a single week, the Mounties had pulled out. The mystery of Anjikuni Lake was officially closed, and the site sank back into a profound silence that would last for 50 years. But history and newspapers detest a vacuum. In February of 1931, the story broke, and a headline in the Winnipeg Evening Tribune, "Ghost Town of the Barrens," tripled the paper's sales overnight. With no official answers, rumours bloomed like intricate frost flowers on a window pane. The theories were wild and imaginative, each more sensational than the last. Whispers spoke of aliens descending in ships of blue light, of ancient Viking curses awakened from the permafrost, and even of Soviet kidnappers testing a new silent nerve gas on an isolated population. The legend was supercharged in 1959 by the best-selling author Frank Edwards. In his book Stranger Than Science, he added a compelling new detail to the story: a queer violet halo rippling across the sky seen by trappers in the area on the night of the disappearance. In 1975, Fate magazine, a publication dedicated to the paranormal, pegged Anjikuni Lake as a kind of cosmic truck stop, a designated portal for extraterrestrial visitors. Local Inuit elders, when asked, swapped their own chilling tales of the Kalupalik, ancient sea ogres said to snatch misbehaving children through breathing holes in the ice. With every single retelling, the story inflated. The village population grew from 30 people to 50, then to 120. The number of dogs doubled. The simple stew on the fire morphed into sizzling caribou steaks. North of the tree line, there were no fact checkers. The snow was simply too deep for skeptical editors to make the journey. It's time to trade the crackling campfire for the cold, hard glare of a headlamp. When you start digging into the details, the grand mystery begins to show some cracks. First snag, the official 1930 Canadian census lists no village named Anjikuni. The closest name is Anjikuni, which was known not as a permanent village, but as a seasonal fishing and hunting spot used by maybe a dozen, not 30, Inuit families. Second snag, the hero of our story, Joe LaBelle. Records from the Hudson's Bay Company show he did trade fur in the region, certainly, but they also show he was known for bootlegging rock gut whiskey along the Churchill River. Furthermore, court documents from 1928 show he declared bankruptcy in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, owing his creditors thousands of dollars. A man bleeding money and desperate to disappear might have a motive for inventing a ghost village to throw creditors off his trail. Yet to pull off such a hoax, you would need accomplices, elaborate props, and nerves of solid glacier ice. Third snag, those disturbed coffins. Inuit living on the Barrens in the 1930s rarely, if ever, dug deep graves in the permafrost. The traditional practice was to wrap bodies in skins and leave them on the open tundra during the summer. A tidy cemetery with buried coffins screams of a European style, making its presence out here highly unlikely. Fourth, and perhaps the biggest snag, a statement made years later by Corporal A.H. Joy, one of the original Mounties on the scene. He told the Calgary Herald, "We found a few empty tents, one dead dog, nothing mystical. One dead dog, not 39 starving but living ones. The file," he shrugged, "was routine until the writers got hold of it." His statement offers a chillingly simple translation. The mystery may be less about a vanishing of people and more about a vanishing of nuance and fact. Even if we dismiss the most sensational details, what could explain an abandoned camp? Arctic historian Sheila Grant proposes a perfect storm of mundane crises. Perhaps the caribou herds, the primary food source, suddenly changed their migration route. An early, severe freeze could have made hunting impossible. In this scenario, the families might have made a desperate bolt for the nearest Hudson's Bay trading post, dumping heavy gear like pots and tents to lighten their sleds for a desperate race for survival. Yet, this theory hits a major wall. Experienced elders would never, under any circumstances, abandon live sled dogs. Dogs weren't pets, they were capital on 4 paws, your engine, your life insurance in the Arctic. What about influenza? Historical outbreaks in isolated northern communities were devastating, leaving behind scorched tents and discarded clothing, but they also left bodies. Anjikuni had none. How about a geomagnetic hiccup? This theory has legs. The North Magnetic Pole was hovering very near the region in 1930. A severe geomagnetic storm can cause compass needles to spin wildly, confuse animal behaviour, and spark auroras so intense they can look like motherships descending from the heavens. Could such a terrifying and disorienting event scare an entire camp into fleeing? Maybe, but you don't flee a threat, natural or otherwise, without your rifle, and you don't leave a perfectly good pot of stew behind. Survival in this landscape depends entirely on resources like seal oil and caribou skin. To ditch both is not just illogical, it's suicide. We're left circling the simplest answer, mass relocation, that keeps smacking directly into the hard wall of cultural logic. Humans are fundamentally pattern-seeking creatures, and we have a PhD in dread. A blank spot on a map where children once played and families once lived unsettles us on a primal level, far more than any named tragedy. When you toss in the elements of eternal night, blinding snow, and a frustrating official silence from authorities, our imagination rushes in to fill that terrifying void. Psychologists call this phenomenon negativity bias. Threatening or mysterious information sticks in our brains, while benign, logical facts tend to slide right off. Add to this the factor of colonial distance. For readers in southern Canada or the United States, the Inuit were often pictured not as real people, but as mystical Eskimos, snow elves living in a world apart. This exoticism made any fantastic tale not just believable, but preferable to a mundane truth. The story detached from reality like an iceberg carving from a glacier. Every decade seems to need its own lost city of Atlantis. Anjikuni became Canada's. UFO buffs love the wide, lonely sky, where one unexplained light feels like definitive proof of galactic pit stops. Inuit spirit lore, filled with shapeshifters and land spirits, merges seamlessly with the narrative because the tundra was already seen as a place teeming with the supernatural. Roll it all together and you get a perfect narrative snowball, a tiny core of a possible real event, packed thick with sensational slush until the original seed is completely obscured. The legend has refused to be freeze-dried by time. In 1995, the popular TV show History Channel's Vanishings replayed the most dramatic version of the events, complete with the stew still warm, to an audience of 3 million viewers. In 2018, an indie horror flick titled Kalupalik doubled its Kickstarter goal by promising to tell the truth north of 60. On the internet, Reddit threads endlessly dissect magnetic anomalies and old newspaper clippings, while TikTokers cosplay as starving huskies reenacting the eerie scene for a new generation. Each retelling drifts farther and farther from Joe LaBelle's original desperate telegram, yet the fundamental hook holds us tight. What if your home, your entire world, emptied overnight? That fear is universal, the geography is irrelevant. Anjikuni survives not as census data or a police file, but as a dark mirror reflecting whatever scares us most in any given era: aliens, government silence, climate catastrophe, or simply the chilling possibility that we too could vanish without an epitaph. In July of 2019, a small team of archaeologists from the University of Manitoba arrived to bring modern science to the old mystery. 5 snowmobiles buzzed across the tundra, carrying ground-penetrating radar and other advanced equipment. The radar did indeed map the remains of old fire hearths and tent rings, evidence of a past settlement, but the carbon dating told a different story. The sites were last used around 1850, not 1930. Critically, the team found no bullets, no tin cans, no glass beads, the common trade goods that would have been everywhere in a camp from the 1930s. They found one partial dog skeleton, bleached white by the sun and wind, its bones gnawed. Was it wolverines? Or just the slow, steady work of time? Nobody could say for sure. The bottom line was stark. The physical evidence for a busy, populated village at Anjikuni Lake in November 1930 is still completely missing in action. The land itself is quiet, so quiet it hums. So, after all this, what scores highest on the plausibility meter? Let's break it down. Mass migration due to famine or a sudden freeze seems possible at first, but the abandonment of essential tools and most importantly the dogs makes it culturally nonsensical. It scores a 3 out of 10. A sudden disease outbreak gets a 2 out of 10. It's a valid threat, but the complete lack of bodies makes it a poor fit for the evidence. The theory of a geomagnetic panic is more compelling. It explains the potential for confusion and fear, but not the abandoned gear. We'll give it a 4 out of 10. A deliberate hoax by a financially ruined Joe LaBelle is a strong contender at 7 out of 10. His motives are clear and many details seem exaggerated, yet it would have been a complex deception to orchestrate. This leaves us with folklore inflation, which scores a solid 8 out of 10. The core story of an empty seasonal camp, perhaps found by LaBelle and reported with some alarm, provides the perfect seed for a legend that grew fatter and more fantastic with every winter and every retelling. And aliens? With zero proof and a heavy dose of wishful thinking, that's a 1 out of 10. The math points overwhelmingly toward a mundane core, a small seasonal camp, likely already empty for the winter, that was wrapped in an ever-expanding fleece of myth. Is the mystery solved? Not quite. Because numbers and scores can't fully erase the powerful images the story creates. That single starved dog, the Mounties' terse and dismissive telegram, or the way your own pulse jumps when you picture deserted snow huts glowing under the eerie light of the aurora. The facts may quiet the story, but they don't quite kill it. I grew up in Winnipeg, where the winters are long and dark. I remember being glued to late-night AM radio shows. Every time a blizzard caused a power outage, plunging the city into darkness, the host would fill the dead air with the chilling tale of the vanished village of Anjikuni. The kid version of me drew crayon pictures of UFOs beaming up unsuspecting hunters into a purple sky. The adult version of me now chases footnotes through dusty archives, trying to separate fact from fiction. In a way, both of those versions still share a bunk in my head. A part of me wants the RCMP files to be wrong, wants the tundra to be hiding some profound cosmic answer, because mystery often tastes so much better than simple statistics. Yet, the historian in me must admit, the bolder the claim, the thinner the paper trail. The enduring lesson of Anjikuni Lake is that sometimes I don't know is the most honest, and in its own way, the most haunting sentence in any language. The North is an expert at swallowing sound, at erasing tracks. Whole caravans have disappeared into whiteouts, bones are scattered by scavengers, and paper records burn for warmth at 50 below. Maybe the only thing we ever truly retrieve from the emptiness is the story we tell ourselves about it. If you've stuck around this long, you are my kind of curious. Share this with that friend of yours who swears aliens built the CN Tower. Hit the like button so the algorithm knows I'm still alive. And always remember, the truth is out there, but the trail might just be drifted over by morning.